Welcome to today's cryptic video. You see, I had an interaction earlier today where I was finding myself getting a little frustrated, and then I thought maybe I should speak about it without directly saying what it is, and the people who are of the intellectual capacity will be able to figure out what I'm talking about. So I think most of us know what it's like to speak to someone that we think is a brick wall. A good example would be if, let's say, I tried to convince you that, I don't know, McDonald's is better than Burger King, and you said, okay, I don't agree with that. And then, logical people would say, well, that's one person's opinion. Let's not even bother discussing this with them anymore. And so then I wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, and I come to you and I say, hey, McDonald's is better than Burger King. And you go, well, again, I still don't agree with you. And then you go, no, 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 McDonald's better than Burger King. And then you can't. I get to a point where not only do I keep saying that over and over and over again, some depraved way of thinking that by saying it over and over again, I'll change your opinion, but I also try to shame you into having a perspective that is different from mine. I try to make it seem as though my opinion or my position is the only one to have. That there can be no viewpoint or idea that could ever be espoused about McDonald's and Burger King that is not mine, that one could rally behind and say, yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't matter. You could bring up that you personally like the food more, and I would completely eviscerate it. So most people that I've interacted with have the sensibility to figure out, yeah, if the person is not changing their mind after the first 2 hours of talking about this subject, they're probably not ever going to. And I do appreciate that a lot of the individuals who follow this content are able to follow that basic line, because when I was doing my Twitter campaign, I would go around and talk about the military budget, for example. I regretted the fact that I got into conversations with people who I thought were either I could change their mind or I could engage them and maybe get them to see another perspective. And so ultimately, it went from that desire to just wanting to raise awareness of it, which is why I don't engage in dialogues anymore. But the reason I go and turn this camera on or go on there is because I'm not interested in trying to convince people who've already convinced themselves that my idea or some topic is not worth talking about. It's to show people who I know, due to the lack of transparency of information by the mainstream media, are not familiar with certain topics or ideas. And in showing them this, it's in the hope that they will say, wow, I had no idea about that. Now I can arrive at my own conclusion based off of the evidence presented to me. And whether they agree with me or don't agree with me, I'd rather they know it's a very simple idea, I think. And ultimately, when they have their conclusion, I'd rather not try to convince them or shame them into thinking that they're villains for disagreeing with me, and present a doomsday scenario. You must agree, which is exactly what happened earlier today. And I've tried to explain this before. One of my biggest pet peeves with modern culture is the idea of monolithic thought, where it seems a lot of opinions or positions that I espouse or somebody else espouses that may or may not fall into the minority way of thinking, based off of polling, come under attack by people for simply not being the position that they have. As I gave you or illustrated earlier with that example of McDonald's being better than Burger King. It will not ruin someone's life if they don't think one restaurant is better than the other. But to present it as though this one thing will alter and destroy you at your very core is absurd. And I'm grateful for the fact that it's that same group of people that I tried my best to avoid that does this, because I can at least be optimistic about the idea that most people aren't that way. Whether that's true or not, I can at least trick myself into thinking that. Um, so I'm thankful for those who support this content, and I just try to avoid these individuals because they're not my kind of people. No matter what our relation may be, how close they are in proximity, or any other factor that's beyond my control. the fact that they open their mouths and still um, arrive at the belief that something they have to say is of interest to me is speaks for itself in terms of their narcissism, because their opinion has never been sought by me, which is what makes their willingness to press forward with it in my face all the more confusing. But these people don't operate on logic, otherwise they wouldn't have the desire to try to make everyone think the way that they do. It's all homogenized. It's really designed toward creating a one-track system where no one can have any viewpoint that's different. And I've talked about it before. So most people aren't that way. That's good. People that are this way, I have no time for. Thank you.